Trevor Brooking is widely regarded as the most stylish and creative of England's midfield men. A skillful and talented player, he's emerged as one of the country's world-class stars. The midfield player is a relatively modern phenomenon. Until the 1960s, teams operated with wing halves and inside forwards whose roles were clearly defined. Many of England's greatest footballers played in these positions, and it was the inside forwards who had the creative attacking role. In the 1930s, Alex James of Arsenal was one of the first great schemers. And in the 1950s, Johnny Haynes, a master of the long pass, created countless chances for his Fulham and England colleagues. But in the mid-60s, as tactics and systems began to grow in importance, so the modern midfield player evolved. Epitomised by players like the dynamic Alan Ball, midfield men had become all-rounders. This style of play has continued through the 70s, and the midfield man has become a key figure in modern football. Some players concentrate their main efforts to defensive situations, others to attack. Ideally, a team will have a balanced midfield, with at least one player with attacking flair and another who can add depth to the defence. Trevor Brooking is one who is at his best in attack, and like all the world's great midfield players, he is highly skilled in the arts of the game.
If a midfield is working well, then the team is playing well as a whole, because they're the link between the defence and the attack. I think their most important role probably is creating chances for the strikers. Also, I think they've got to score their own quota of goals, but they must do that without ignoring their defensive roles, so that they have to play in all departments, really, all over the field.
No midfield player can operate efficiently without tremendous stamina. Running backwards and forwards between defence and attack, looking for space, tackling, winning the ball, all require a high degree of fitness. Playing in midfield is a non-stop job, and stamina is high on the list of priorities.
Yeah, stamina and strength, probably the most important part of that is done in your first month of the season.
Right the way round.
When the season gets underway, probably for that first month, you're playing 2 matches a week at least in the earlier part. And I think in those first 2 months you've probably built up to your peak fitness, and then it's a case of making sure you keep that fitness ticking over by probably once a week doing a really good running session.
Go on, David, catch it up then. Go! Go on, Frank, all the way, all the way, all the way. Really go, Alex, come on. Go! Really go, put him in there. Go on, go on, go on, go! Really go now, really go, really go, go! Go on, Gary, go on, Gary.
Probably one day we'll leave the balls alone completely. And we do a hard running session, then we move into a small type of circuit. We don't concentrate so much on weights as general body work.
Pick it up. Get well down.
But certainly it is important, I think, just to build up general fitness, but not to become too much of a muscle man, because I don't think that's essential in football. But to build up certain muscles is good for your stamina.
Just a little bounce there, just loosen them out. Then up it goes again. That's it. As high as you can get. Try and get a good half dozen in as springy as you can. That's it.
Good ball control is also important. In In midfield, there's no time to waste. Defenders and opposing midfield men always try to cut down the space available. And so, in tight situations, when heavily challenged, there's little time to dwell on the ball before deciding what to do with it.
Ball control is vitally important, especially when it is a congested area in midfield. You can't afford to receive a pass and have the ball run 2 or 3 yards away from you because you've lost possession. You must kill it dead. It enables you then to think more about what you're going to do with the ball once you've got possession. It's a sort of skill that you've got to work on in training to maintain it. I think midfield departments do become so congested these days that you've always got to be looking around you before you receive possession to have a complete picture of what's going on in the game.
The midfield man is a crucial factor in a team's performance. If he's not winning the midfield battle, his opponents will have possession and so gain the upper hand. He must be able to pace the game according to his team's needs. If they're to go forward, he can prompt them with long passes. If the game has to be slowed down, he can hold the ball. In training, shielding and holding the ball in a confined space improves his ability to keep possession.
Working in tight situations, you can have 1 against 1 in a 10-yard square, and it's up to the player to keep possession of the ball and make sure that the opponent can't get a tackle in. If he's doing a good job, it can go on for quite a while. Shielding becomes important when the early pass isn't on and there's not really a get-out ball or somebody's pressurising you and you need time to have another look at what's going on. And so you shield the ball away and turn and check just to give yourself that extra yard or two that you can again look up and see what else has happened in the meantime.
One touch or 2-touch five-a-side also sharpens up control. In this type of game, the midfield player has to think and react more quickly. Not only does he have to find space so that other players can pass to him, but he also has to know where he's going to pass the ball before he receives it.
Over the top! Down!
In midfield, good passing is essential. All players should be able to pass well, but it's even more important for the midfield player, whose game revolves around it. If his passes begin to go astray, then his team's rhythm is likely to suffer.
Passing must play an important part because you have to use all range of passes really. All the different types of passes have to be worked on in training.
And you go sharper on the run.
Even the most simple exercises help to maintain a good standard. First-time passing cuts down the chances of being caught in possession, and many quick counter-attacks are the result of a first-time pass.
Again, it's really reading the situation, knowing what's going on around you, knowing if you've got time to play the early ball. I would think midfield men play the first-time ball a good deal more than they used to in years before.
Being able to pass with either foot gives the midfield player a greater number of options in any situation.
An important part is switching the play from left to right, from right to left. And at times you're only able to do that if you can use both feet. Otherwise you just have to play a little ball back to a defender and the chance of creating problems for the opposition is lost, then you have to start building up again.
Various types of pass can be used for different reasons. The inside of the foot has generally been regarded as the correct way of passing the ball. Yet even though it's accurate, the side foot pass is only normally used over short distances.
In the inside of the foot, you've got a larger part, I think, of the feet to use in your pass, and so there's less chance of making a mistake. Certainly the inside of the foot, if it is possible, is probably the least way of making a mistake.
Professional players, especially in midfield, often prefer to flick the ball on with the outside of the foot, particularly if they're running at speed. The pace of the game is such that a player must be able to pass the ball in as many ways as possible. In a match, passes can often be intercepted because they're telegraphed. By using the outside of the foot, the defender is given less chance of guessing which way the pass will go. It can also get a player out of trouble in tight situations. For long passes, the ball can be hit with the instep to give it more distance. The alternative is to use the chip, which gives the pass extra height and takes the ball over defenders.
Yeah, I like the chip pass myself. I think nowadays it can break down defence because they do mark so tight that the ball just chipped over the top of a defender for somebody to run onto can create problems.
But however the pass is made, it's important that it reaches the player it's intended for. Players receiving a pass are usually on the move, so a good pass should be correctly weighted, hit with the right amount of power and at the correct height. Then the player receiving the ball can control it without difficulty. If he has to struggle, it's often the fault of the man who made the pass.
There are two main faults with passing. You mustn't overhit the ball, you mustn't underhit the ball. If you're playing into a striker, and if you aim at the player when he's running or making a run, it means he has to check, and probably the yard or two that he might have gotten on a defender is then lost, and so you have to build up from scratch again. Really, you're wanting a striker to run onto a ball. It all revolves certainly around accuracy, but weight is probably more important than anything. Really, you should play it into him with enough weight that it's easy for him to bring it under control or lay it back into you first time. So weight of pass is very important.
All top-class midfield players have tremendous passing ability. No midfield man can function well without it. Much of his passing is used to support his strikers. Some players use the short ball effectively in building attacks, whilst others prefer the long through ball. What is important is the right kind of ball at the right time. When he plays the ball to his forwards, the midfield man will often try to pass into space. In this way, he is giving his attackers more chance of reaching the ball.
Naturally, you have to play it away from the defender on the outside of the attacker so that there's no chance of the defender cutting across the line of the ball and intercepting it.
Crossing the ball is another important part of the midfield man's game, especially for a team which plays without wingers. So he must look for players who have moved into possible scoring positions. It's his responsibility to create as many chances as possible for his strikers. In training, midfield men work with their strikers on situations that are likely to occur in a match. This helps to build up an understanding between them.
Midfield players, when it is congested, sometimes find themselves out wide in possibly a winger's role, so they have to put the crosses in.
Get there, Bill. Don't let him get a shot in, Billy. Go on, don't let him get it in, Billy.
The midfield man is always at the heart of his team's attacks. At free kicks and corners, his tactical sense can prove a valuable asset.
Go on, Bill. Go on, Billy's giving it here. That's it. Up it goes again.
The midfield man should be a ball winner. He can only control the game when he has possession, so he constantly harasses opponents and challenges for the ball. This exercise tests both his challenging qualities as well as his ability to attack positively.
Go on, compete, compete, compete. Go on, Pop, go on, Pop. That's it. Go on, Pop. Try and nick it up there. Stretch him the other way. Go on, go on.
A lot of teams do mark down pretty strictly man-to-man at times. So if you can get past your man and so bring a defender to you, you should then be leaving somebody else spare. And I think this is all part of the midfield player to be able to do this.
Begin to get people who want to go forward and be a little bit adventurous. No good to stay and go.
When extended to 2 players on each side, the exercise improves positional sense and also helps to create understanding between teammates.
Come on, we're giving it away. Yes, Pop. Go on, go on, go on. Work at him, work at him. Well done, Pop. Magic. Well played. Yes, and the next.
Apart from his supporting role in attack, the complete midfield player should also be a goal scorer. Although Brookings scores less often than he would like, he recognises the importance of being able to strike at goal whenever possible. Shooting opportunities for midfield players most often come in deep positions, and in training, shooting practice is geared to typical match situations. Midfield players also have a defensive role. When the team is under pressure, they become the first line of defence, so it's essential they know how to pressurise opponents and narrow passing angles. Exercises in confined areas are good practice for cutting down the space available to opponents in the middle of the field, and also for minimising their passing options.
He's got to run. He's got to run when he plays it. Yeah, he's got 2 touches. 2 touches.
You can go either one. I think we forget. Gary, do you want it? Trev! That's it. And then you open the key angle up. That's it. Well done. You've got out of it well. Come on, don't stand. Go in the free corner. Keep looking. There's one over there. Come on, see you can get little blind runs in as well. That's it. Now we get moving. And again, do it early. Well done, Pop. Movement again. Yes, Keithy, in you go. Come on, free corner, Trev. Free. Come on, you can go to either one, so if he senses you're just going to knock round, you just check and hold it and then go the other way. So you should all be aware. See if the free corner...
In the middle of the field, interceptions are often the beginning of counterattacks. So midfield men should be able to read an opponent's mind and anticipate where he's going to pass.
Interceptions in midfield are very important because fortunately mistakes are always made And in midfield, if you can intercept a square pass, it is the element of surprise from having possession and suddenly losing it, which defences can relax at that stage. They feel they've got possession, and suddenly when you get control, you might find that a striker's just got a couple of yards on the defender, or you've got an extra man in the attack. So interceptions can play an important part and can win games.
Even if he's basically an attacking player, when his team is under pressure, the midfield man should retreat to a defensive position in front of the back four. His defenders, who are well placed to see how the opposition attack is building, give him advice on what to do with his opponent. Whether he should tackle, whether he should pass back to the keeper, or whether he should get rid of the ball as soon as possible. He also has a role to play at a defensive set piece. He will usually have to form part of the defensive wall or mark his opposite number, but this will have been discussed before the match. Many teams succeed because their midfield makes life easier for both attack and defence. Midfield players are gifted in all areas of the game and are often men of great skill and vision. Midfield players are soccer's generals, and the battle for midfield is at the heart of every game. But not even the greatest midfield player can win matches on his own. He needs the response of the players around him. Yet he can dramatically change the course of a game, and without him, no team can hope to succeed.
No, I enjoy the involvement of a midfield player. Fortunately, in the role and style of football I've played ever since I've gone into professional football, it's been more of a free attacking role. In the 90 minutes, the midfield player receives that much more of the ball than anyone else, and it's essential that he has more effect on the game than other players in other roles.
Gordon Hill is one of the brilliant young wingers now making a dramatic impact on English League soccer. In the early days of soccer, wingers were often the most exciting players on the field. The greatest of his day and one of the most famous footballers of all time was Stanley Matthews. Nicknamed the Wizard of the Dribble, he seemed able to mesmerize defenders before destroying them. When Matthews retired, Tom Finney carried on the tradition of English wingers. Although less spectacular, he was certainly just as efficient and skillful in supplying passes to his forwards. Then came George Best, a controversial character perhaps, but nevertheless one of the most talented players of his day. His exceptional ball control astonished players and crowds alike. In the late 60s, a new tactical approach to the game made the specialist winger a luxury many teams could not afford. But the 70s have seen their return at both club and international level. Wingers provide many advantages. Firstly, they open up the game. By running wide, they take defenders with them, which creates more space in the middle in which their strikers and midfield men can work. They can also use their speed to get behind defenders before crossing the ball to create chances for their strikers. An extra advantage for a team with two wingers is that they can switch play quickly and so use the whole width of the pitch in their attacks. In a team putting the main emphasis on attack, a good winger is a valuable asset. Gordon Hill is one of those players. A stylish left winger, his dribbling artistry, fine ball control and accurate crossing ability have shown how useful a winger can be in a team.
Saturday afternoons is said to be the easy day for you. It's from Monday to Friday when you've got to train. If I've got to do my training, I've got to do it, and it's only yourself that will benefit from training. And if you chamois training, then you'll chamois the game on a Saturday.
Gordon left wing. Okay.
In five-a-side, you've got to do instinct football because the pitch is much smaller, you're more compact. You've got to do things instantly, you've got to react a lot faster in a five-a-side, and this sharpens you up. When the ball's not on your side or not even in your half or the keeper's got it, you've got to be looking for open space. It's not worth getting past the defender and think to yourself, oh my God, what am I going to do now? You've got to be able to get the ball, know what you're going to do with it.
Traditionally, wingers are small and lightly built and are not usually considered to be physically strong. But in fact, they take many knocks during a game, often being heavily tackled whilst running at speed. So in training, apart from maintaining his general fitness, the winger must strengthen his body so that he can stand up to hard tackles and not be intimidated by physical contact. One of the major factors in a winger's game is speed. He often relies on sheer speed to get past a man and sometimes has to sprint 20 or 30 yards to collect a pass.
But without speed, you can have tremendous dribbling ability and taking defenders on, but if you can't actually get away from him, once you're past the defender, then I think you're lost because the defender will always come back and tackle you. The first 2 yards after getting past the defender is the important part. If you're 2 yards past him and he turns and runs after you and can't catch you, then you've beaten him.
To gain an advantage over a defender, it's important that the winger can accelerate quickly from a standing start. Training in competition with other players gives him an incentive to improve. Any exercise which involves acceleration and speed on the turn is useful to the winger. The art of changing course swiftly is as important as speed. Losing a marker calls for quick changes of pace and direction, so the winger must be light on his feet.
Body swerving is one way of distracting the attention of the defender, but still keeping the ball at your feet. This can be practiced with poles. If you line poles every 10 yards when you're practicing it, and just keep on going in and out and not hitting the poles.
Go on.
Go, Gordon. Left. Going right. Now stop. Turn. Left. Right.
As he never knows which way he'll have to turn, sharp reactions are essential to help him change direction quickly.
Back again.
This exercise taxes those reactions as well as his fitness. Ball control is another essential part of the winger's game. Whether running at speed or beating a defender, he must always be in control. The art of dribbling is the winger's speciality.
To get perfection out of dribbling or to become a better dribbler, I think if you've got cones or anything like that and place them, say, 10 yards apart and dribble in and out, and then close the cones up to, say, 8 yards apart, you'll find that your body will adjust and you'll find that you'll be able to swerve in and out with the ball and not touch the cones.
A good dribbler must be able to control the ball with the inside or the outside of either foot. This gives him versatility and makes him less predictable. Training, whenever possible, is linked with match situations. Dribbling around a line of players who are allowed to move even a little out of position would improve the winger's close control, his balance, and also his ability to react quickly whilst keeping the ball at his feet. The winger's dribbling skill is most often used to get past defenders. There are many methods of beating a man, all of them based on the same principle, that the attacker should make the defender believe he's going to do one thing, when in fact he's planning something else. In this instance, the winger dummies as if to go inside before pushing the ball down the outside. If he beats his man on the outside, he can then stay wide and force other defenders to move out of position to cover him.
When a defender comes at me, I think of the quickest and fastest way of getting round him. Speed is very important to my game because the defenders nowadays are getting faster and faster.
Another way of beating the defender is to go on the inside. This means attacking the defender's weaker foot and gives him less chance to recover. The winger can then either switch the direction of play or get into a shooting position. But whichever way he chooses, beating a man requires a positive approach.
If you've got confidence to beat a defender, you're halfway there. The defender starts worrying about you instead of you worrying about the defender.
Instead of dribbling past a man, the winger sometimes uses the wall pass. It's a method of bypassing a defender by using another attacker to provide the return pass. But it's important to make sure that the sprint for the return pass is timed accurately to avoid advancing into an offside position. Many teams use the cross as one of their main forms of attack, and it's important that all players do it efficiently. At most clubs, everyone is allocated some time every week to practice crosses, so that they can be used to their full advantage in a match. Players and managers are constantly looking for ways of making better use of crosses to break through defences.
So there's some good examples here on that from your point of view, Gord. Exactly, like where to cross the ball, where it could do the most damage. And most of these examples are the ball across the face of the goal, aiming at the space between the goalkeeper and his back four. If you can.
Much of the responsibility for crossing the ball rests on the winger. It's his job to get the ball into the penalty area for his strikers.
But you'll have to curl it in there, you know, to avoid the people in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you see some good examples coming up.
That one.
Yeah, and it's across the face of the goal.
Yeah. You seem to put a bend on it, don't it?
Yeah.
When you get right just down the bottom.
Well, you bend it because you've got to avoid the bloke in front of you, the defender. And the only way you can avoid him is by curling it round him.
Yeah. With an early break, you can look up to see where your strikers are, but generally it's their job to get on the end of your crosses, not your job to find them.
The winger will often try to reach the goal line before crossing the ball, so that there is less chance of his forwards being caught offside. When the winger crosses the ball, he has a number of options. The far post cross creates special problems for defences. A well-judged cross will be aimed to cut out both the goalkeeper and the centre-backs, to give forwards at the far post a clear run at goal. Near-post crosses are equally dangerous because the ball can be either flicked on across the box or into goal. A ball bent away from the goalkeeper will leave him in two minds, whether to come out for it or not. The low, hard centre across the face of the goal is possibly the most dangerous type of cross. It creates problems for goalkeepers because the slightest deflection could speed the ball on into the net. Another alternative is to pull the ball back to the 18-yard line. The advantage here is that the ball reaches a supporting player who may be in enough space to try a shot. Sometimes the winger will find that an attack calls for an early cross. Instead of beating his man, he crosses the ball quickly, trying to catch the opposition unawares. If defenders are retreating towards their own goal, they will have difficulty clearing the ball to safety and may have to concede a corner. The corner kick is one of the game's most valuable set pieces. More often than not, it's the winger's responsibility because he is more expert than other players in the art of crossing the ball. The winger usually takes corners on the opposite wing so that he can curl the ball into the goal mouth with the natural inward swing of his foot.
In corners, we use the in-swinging corner for a benefit for strikers when they're coming in. The ball is going goalwards. All it needs is a little touch on by one of your strikers and the ball's in the back of the net.
As with crosses, corners can be equally effective at the near or far post.
We concentrate on corners because that is virtually a free cross to goal.
Some wingers also find it effective to take corners from their own side of the field. From there, the natural swing curls the ball away from the goalkeeper. And if he wants to cut out the cross, the keeper has to commit himself and come out of his goal. Outswingers hit correctly are very worrying for goalkeepers. Even from his own side of the field, the winger can still curl the ball inwards so that it drops in the goal mouth. He does this by slicing the ball with the outside of his foot to put spin on the ball. The winger can vary his corners, but in matches he should let his forwards know exactly what he plans to do.
We've got a certain signals that players know which ball we're going to do. We're going to either play the near ball or the far ball. Short corners are used to pull defences out when it's tightly marked inside the box. A short corner is used to pull a couple of defenders out to the ball.
The modern winger's role is not confined entirely to attack. He must also play his part in defence by harassing opponents, especially opposing fullbacks when they're moving upfield. He must be prepared to tackle, to challenge, and to fight for possession. A team cannot afford a winger who hides on the touchline when the going gets tough. High-scoring wingers are rare in English soccer, largely because their main task is to provide other players with scoring chances. But a winger who does score goals is extremely valuable. A player who has a natural inclination to shoot should always be encouraged to do so. Heading the ball is something wingers used to avoid, but today a winger with the ability to head the ball well will pose an even greater threat to defences. The goal-hungry winger will be looking for scoring chances all around the penalty area. The modern winger's role requires many skills and techniques. With defences becoming even tighter, The demands made on him are constantly increasing.
My basic training is to keep on practicing dribbling, passing, shooting. You can't forget these exercises. You've got to keep them up. You've got to keep doing these because you never know when you're going to need them on the park. There's match fitness and there's training fitness, where you can train all week doing running, dribbling and everything else that goes with training, but to be match fit, you've got to keep playing matches. You've got to keep in the match tempo.
No matter which tactical system is in vogue, wingers will always have a part to play. Every great striker scores a high percentage of his goals from the chances created by wingers. They are the players with flair and imagination who thrive on the challenge of taking players on and cracking open tight defences. Kevin Keegan is one of the select group of English players who have successfully made the move into European soccer. At Liverpool, Keegan established himself as one of England's most dangerous strikers, and his move to Hamburg confirmed that he's a world-class player. England has seen more than its share of great goal scorers in the 90 years since the Football League began. In the days when defences were less organised, individual feats of goal scoring were more common than they are today. No one now is likely to beat the record set by Everton's Dixie Dean, who totalled 60 goals in the 1927-28 season. By the 30s, it was accepted that centre-forwards were responsible for scoring most of the goals. Tommy Lawton was one of those classic centre-forwards who concentrated all his energy on putting the ball into the net. After the war, defences were gradually tightening up, but there was still enough room for centre-forwards to make their mark. Stan Mortison of Blackpool and England thrived on running at defences and taking players on. Another great post-war striker was Bolton's Nat Lofthouse, a typical example of the powerful centre-forward, as dangerous shooting from long range as he was in the penalty area. He scored 30 goals for England in only 33 appearances. By the 60s, the pattern was beginning to change. The style of play put less emphasis on the centre forward. Bobby Charlton, who scored 49 goals for England, a record that still stands, was both a winger and an inside forward. But his devastating shot brought many spectacular goals, especially from outside the penalty area. The 60s was also the era of the opportunist. The master of the half-chance was Jimmy Greaves. Teams feared him not only because of the apparent ease with which he went round defenders, but also because they knew he would pounce on the slightest error. It was these qualities which made him one of England's most accomplished forwards. Another player who rates amongst the greatest strikers of all time is Denis Law. Law was brilliant, both on the ground and in the air. But it's for his quick reactions in the penalty area that he'll be most remembered. In the modern game, scoring goals has become more difficult because defences are better organised. Few forwards now score more than 25 goals in a season, and the goals are shared more evenly between the front runners. The result has been that strikers now find themselves involved in the game in many other ways. They now operate as part of an attacking unit, and setting up goals is just as important as scoring them. But there'll always be a place for players who can regularly put the ball in the net. Many players find it hard to classify themselves easily. Keegan regards himself as a deep-lying striker who scores goals, but also creates problems for the opposition.
I think in the modern game there's so many different types of strikers, and I think mainly the striker depends on the team he plays in. The perfect striker for me, he can head a ball, he can volley a ball, he can do overhead kicks, he's quick, he can draw people out for others, he's not selfish, but when he gets near the goal, he's greedy. And that for me is what a striker's all about.
As with any other footballer, the striker has to reach a high level of fitness if he's to put his skills into action for 90 minutes. General fitness training involves running exercises, so the players can keep leg muscles well toned and can take the pace of a game without tiring before the final whistle. But it's just as important for the coach to realize that many players find too many running exercises boring, and he can't expect the team to benefit fully from training unless they're enjoying it. With imagination, training can be varied, and Keegan's experience is that players are happier when exercises involve working with a ball.
In Germany, the training is mainly centred around the use of a ball. Ask a player to run the length of a football field 5 or 6 times, just on his own, and he'll say, come on, what's the deal, this isn't football. But you put a football there and ask him to do it 50 times, and he'll work twice as hard without ever realising it. And he'll do it without even thinking. He'll enjoy it.
It's this kind of training and a belief in hard work that has given Keegan the stamina he needs in his role as a deep-lying striker. His desire to create chances as well as score means taking on extra work. A striker also has to accept that defenders will play hard, and so he needs strength, not only to shake off challenges, but to take the impact of hard tackling.
I think as a striker, you've got to accept the fact that you're going to take physical punishment. Some players have the ability to mark people very closely without actually coming into physical contact. And some players, their main asset is just brute force. Both types of players are very hard to play against, but I would sooner play against the man who is physical.
Speed has become one of the modern striker's trademarks. Not necessarily speed over long distances, but short sprints which find valuable space or leave defenders stranded.
I think a good striker has got to have pace. They say in the game today, if you've got this magical ability to go 5 yards really quickly, then you're halfway to being a professional footballer. I think this is very true.
Ball control also has its part to play. A striker spends a lot of his time receiving passes, and he's usually closely marked. So he has to be able to turn quickly with the ball and to control it while he's on the run. These training exercises relate directly to matches.
Ball control is very important to a forward. I think it's important that if a ball's knocked up to you, it only takes you one attempt to control it. You see a lot of players, it takes 2, 3 attempts, and while they're doing that, then everybody else is getting closed down.
A striker can't be judged simply on how many goals he scores. The average forward has the ball in his possession for only 3 or 4 minutes in each game. So it's important to consider how much useful work the striker gets through when he doesn't have the ball. Much of the time, he'll be trying to pull defenders out of position to make space for teammates. Or he'll be finding space for himself, so that the midfield men can lay the ball through to him.
I think the biggest problem in educating people who watch football is to educate them to look at players running off the ball. Because when you come to a football match, you tend to just look at the player with the ball. In other words, you follow the ball. But some of the most important aspects of the game of football happens off the ball. The man who is not in possession, who makes the space, who makes the run behind other players. 9 times out of 10, this sort of work goes without praise.
This England training session is intended to help players build up a good understanding with each other. Up front, it's essential that players work well together, finding space and moving into positions to receive passes.
Yes, Tom, this way.
Try and get it between. Put to the cross.
Yes, Phil. Right, Phil. Bye-bye.
Strikers spend much of their time laying the ball off, especially if they're acting as target men. This means they have to get into positions near the opponent's goal, where they can receive a pass and quickly return the ball into the path of a teammate. In this role, a striker will often have his back to the defenders. So shielding, getting the body between the ball and the opponent, becomes more important for him than for other players.
Shielding the ball is very important as a forward because you spend so much of your time with your back to where you want to go. It's important to shield it, to keep control of it, while supporting players have the chance to make the run off the ball.
So the striker must be fast, but speed alone is rarely enough to find the space which is so necessary to his game. He must be able to turn quickly and in any direction.
Speed off the mark is vital in the game, and in training all we do are what we call shuttles. Up to a post, back, up to a post, turning left, turning right, and I think that's important. All right, everybody has a favourite side, but in a box, in a crowded box, you only got a split second, and if you turn left and you should have turned right, that could cost you a goal. Once you practice it, you'll find more and more that you start turning to what used to be your weak side probably more often.
His ability to change direction quickly, particularly around the penalty area, is important because he spends so much of his time facing his own goal. If he can send the defender the wrong way, he immediately gives himself more space.
Once you've got a yard on a player in this game, inside the box, then you've got a chance of scoring, because you don't find space easy to come by in a penalty area. Being small gives me a low centre of gravity. I have good balance, and I think that's why I turn very quickly on the floor and cause a little bit of trouble.
Ultimately, whatever other skills he might need, it's the ability to score that counts.
The perfect striker for me can put the ball in the back of the net 8 times out of 10 at the very least. It's no good him having all the skill, all the ball control and the good timing of both heading and shooting if he's missing the target. Because as a striker you must accept that you only stay in the team if you're scoring goals.
So any training routine for a striker will involve a great deal of shooting. The professionals realise that without regular practice, a player can soon lose his sharpness.
We practice shooting probably more than any other thing, because as a striker, this is what your main job is, to score goals. And unless you practice shooting, chipping, clipping a ball, you find that your timing soon goes wrong.
A striker can shoot with any part of his foot, but the most common shot is the instep drive. With correct technique, an instep drive is powerful, accurate, and ensures that the ball stays low. If the striker keeps his head down and his knee over the ball, it'll stay low. If he leans back, he can give the ball some lift. Alternatively, there's the chip shot, which has a more specific use.
I like to try and chip goals. I get more satisfaction out of a chip goal than any, because I think you are then fooling the goalkeeper, who's doing his job to the best of his ability, and I think you've put one over on him, so to speak.
Potentially, the most powerful shot is the volley, because the player puts all his weight behind it. It looks deceptively easy, but is probably one of the most difficult shots to time. This is mainly because the body position has to be just right when the ball arrives. Unless the player gets well over it and hits the ball with his instep, the shot's likely to go much too high. Where space is tight, it's the best policy to hit the ball first time, or as quickly as possible. The danger is in snatching at the ball, which pulls it wide or puts it over the top. But it's usually better to try a snapshot than risk wasting a chance by being overcautious. A player won't always be in a situation where he can choose which foot or which type of shot to use. So he should be able to take a man on either side, and to shoot effectively with either foot.
My left foot isn't as good as I'd like it to be, but I've scored some of the best goals ever with my left foot when I've needed it, and I think this is due to practicing quite a lot, especially when I was young. I think I'm a great believer in practice makes perfect. With my left foot, it'll never make my left foot perfect, but it never lets me down when I need it.
Because marking is so tight in the modern game, the striker will be under constant pressure from his marker. Simulating these conditions in training makes him appreciate that he has to make the most of any chance that comes his way. The result of the striker's training should be that he shoots instinctively when any chance arises. For many strikers, being able to head the ball well can be an even greater asset than shooting. Many players are tall and use their height to advantage, but smaller players like Keegan need to get maximum height. Jumping practice helps them to develop this.
I think my ability to head a ball is probably my biggest asset. That might sound incredible to some people because I'm small, but from being young I've worked very hard on heading ability, and I think the reason I get so many goals in my head is because people tend to look round for the big fellas and they tend to forget the little guys. They think, well, it's a corner, it's going to come in the air, and this guy's not that tall.
As with shooting, technique is all important. Timing and accuracy only come through constant practice and attention to detail. Most headers require three things: keeping both eyes on the ball, using the neck muscles to put power into the header, and timing the jump to meet the ball at its highest point.
At Liverpool, we used to cross a lot of balls, and we used to try and stay in the air and then move the neck muscles to put the ball where we wanted to. And this way it makes it a very hard job for the goalkeeper to guess just which angle you're going to choose to put the ball. But since I went into the Bundesliga at Hamburg, we have a gadget there, which I think over the next 5 or 10 years is going to become one of the most used contraptions in soccer. The reason it's so good is that it's realistic. The ball is coming out of the air, the wind sometimes sways it as it does in a game, and it comes from different angles and it comes from maybe 20, 30 metres away. And by doing this, you're making the training very much like a ball comes in a game. And I've found that since I've been in Germany, my heading's actually improved. And it's taught me a lesson, really. And that lesson is that no matter how long you play professional football, you'll never ever reach perfection.
The pole has many uses, and Keegan shows how a player can improve his jumping ability by setting himself realistic targets. Many heading chances around the box come at the near post or the far post. At the near post, the striker should try to get in front of his marker so that he can glance the ball across the goal mouth or into the net before his marker can get to it. In crosses and corners, which are often aimed at the far post, it's the striker's job to get to the ball, because wingers won't always look for a player before they cross it.
9 times out of 10, if you're 5 or 6 yards from goal and a cross comes in and you've got a head to it, if you head it down, then you know you have a chance of scoring. If you head it up, it's only going to go over the bar, it's only going to go wide, you know. The secret is always to head the ball downwards, unless, of course, the goalkeeper's coming at you and you've got to lob it over him.
The diving header is always spectacular and should be in every striker's repertoire, even if he rarely gets the chance to use it. However, it's pointless risking injury simply to look good, and few professionals will try a diving header if there are too many players nearby. But if they're properly timed, diving headers are almost unstoppable, and even 1 goal a season makes all the training worthwhile. Few players head the ball really well, but it's a skill which can be of great value to the striker, as it gives him more options in front of goal. Modern strikers have far more responsibilities than their earlier counterparts. Now their efforts tend to be concentrated on whatever the team requires, even if it means helping in defence. If a striker isn't scoring goals regularly, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's playing badly. He may be contributing to the team's success by taking weight off other players. But if he's missing chances when they come to him, then he must take a good look at his game, because ultimately his main objective is to score goals. No striker is happy unless he's putting the ball in the back of the net.
It's sometimes a little bit unfair that the guy who sticks the ball in the net gets all the praise, but it's the law of the game, really. And for me, it's the biggest thrill in the world is to see the ball hit in the back of the net. You meant it to go there.
If you get this thrill, then you've a chance of being a striker. If it doesn't mean anything to you, I don't really think you've got that killer instinct in you.
Mm-hmm.